establishment came and took his little farm home of just 2.5 acres or so. He was legally raising chickens, and he'd beaten them in court over and over again since 2008. And I was reading they couldn't get the local sheriff involved, so somehow the feds were involved, and there was an explosion, and he's dead. And yesterday, Darrin McBreen and our other great reporter and researcher, Marcos Morales, arrived there. They arrived there the evening before, and they went to the city hall that looks like it's a Capitol building or something. It's so large. And we're told by the police, yelled at, and told, you cannot, and we have footage of this, you cannot go in the city council building in broad daylight. I think it was like noontime or so, because they were on the show right after it happened, and we have that high-def footage they shot there on the ground. They're getting back tonight. We'll have it for you on the radio/TV and the nightly news on Monday. And the police first got in their face, said, turn your cameras off, you're bad, you're not real media. And my guys are like, First Amendment, we're just going inside, very polite. They said, you're not allowed to go in the building. Well, now there's been a new twist. And while Darrin was getting ready for this live feed from an iPhone via Skype, there in Roswell, Georgia, the site of Agenda 21 death and destruction, as we document and chronicle Agenda 21 green zoning, because they were taking his land to make it a green zone. And, of course, other land that they've been taking. This was just the tail-end piece they needed. But now it's not going to be a park, they've announced. They're deciding to just sell it to some friends, of course. That's how it works. Usually they don't even build the park. They're like, we're taking your neighbor's land for a park. The neighbor's like, oh, I want that. Then later, well, where's my park? You don't get that, stupid. We're going to build a high-rise on it now. But the point is, the police said you can't go in the city council headquarters public building. So I told him, I said, I want you to go back down there tomorrow, and if you choose to violate their unlawful order and you choose to get arrested, I will sue them. I will pay to sue them. But I said, don't resist, obviously, and I said, and don't go in if you don't want to get arrested. Well, they backed off. Now, as we were waiting to go live here during the last 3-minute break, Darrin McBreen was standing in front of the city hall, and 2 police cars pull up behind him. So they're in the shot right now, keeping an eye on the dangerous reporter. But there's been a new twist, and Darrin McBreen will tell us about that. Darrin, thank you for joining us, sir.
Well, Alex, what a difference a day makes. You know, yesterday, like I said, we were harassed. We actually called the community relations spokesperson today. Her name is Julie Breckbell. And, you know, we told her that we would be returning to City Hall today and asked her if, you know, we should expect harassment by the police. Basically, today, it's a different story. You know, they rolled out the welcome wagon. She invited us into the building. She even was gracious enough to participate in an interview. But nobody is talking about the case of Andrew Werdes. Not a single person. In fact, we're even told that, you know, the mayor, what's his name, Jerry Wood, that he actually made a press conference. I believe it was at Werdes' funeral. And that's the only public statement, and he even informed the public at that time that this would be the last time and that he's not going to talk to the public about this topic again.
Oh, really? Not going to talk about the topic again? That's what Congressman Weiner said early on.
Yeah, so nobody's answering questions. It's very odd, you know, and you know, when you rush up the steps with a microphone and a camera, it's just strange. You know, yesterday to be surrounded by police, you know, it felt like one of those fictitious suburban towns in the Twilight Zone. I couldn't believe it. But like I said, today it's a different story. It might have to do with the fact that we were told that there's nobody in the city council that's even here today. The mayor's not here. Nobody's here. So maybe it's because there's nobody.
Yeah, no, that's the twist. They were all there. Marcos had gone in before you to make sure it was the right building. They're in the sprawling government complex, feeding on the public, and then she threw him out and said, no, just leave. You try to come in, they block you. And then now today you were saying it was a ghost town in there. So, oh, go ahead, come on in now, because you can't talk to anybody, because you know, they're all off playing golf or something.
Yeah, and you know, and I think they're fully aware by now that we are, you know, very knowledgeable of our rights, you know, so they know that we're not going to be budged, you know, and I think that's important for everybody to know. If you know your rights, you're protected, but if you don't, you know, they will jump all over you. I mean, they will take advantage of that fact. So it's really ruled by consent.
It is. Now you've talked to more people trying to investigate Mr. Huertas's death. And again, we have a report last night. You followed the nightly news. Agenda 21, green kiss of death. But what are we learning now about the way he died? Is there any further investigation? I know there's conflicting news reports because nobody's talking now that some of the police refuse to take part in the raid against the evil chicken farmer.
You know, I think the strangest thing is that we actually have more questions now than we did when we first got here. You know, it's just that nobody is talking. You know, there has been some people some police that have told us that they refused, that they didn't want to participate, but they didn't want to talk on camera. We're trying to get Sheriff Jackson. We're trying to get his, you know, what he thinks about all this. We're told that he might talk to us. I talked to his secretary. No phone calls back.
Now, I know you've tried to talk to some of the journalists and others. What are locals saying? Do we know anything? It's just
well, the
house
locals,
blows up when there's a raid, and they say, we think he committed suicide, and then we get there and they're acting all suspicious. Yeah,
I think the locals, from what I've talked to the locals, they feel that it was a suicide, but they're, you know, I think they're still in shock. You know, the guy was well loved in the community. You know, the school children loved him. You know, he was friends with the mayor. You know, he borrowed the mayor's tractor to grade his own property because the city, you know, refused to maintain the sewage and the drain.
Well, then why won't the mayor talk to you then? Because I know reportedly he's not the kingpin in all this and was friends with him. So it's the code enforcement people. You know, over and over again, it's like the mayor, the police chief, they just do whatever these bureaucrats tell them.
Look, the mayor issued an official press conference, and like I said, I believe it was at Andrew Huerta's funeral, and he informed the public that this is it. This is the last time we're talking about this. So any questions that the media has on this case, they are just simply referring everyone to the mayor's official press conference, which I haven't seen or read, but I can assure you as soon as we get to a computer, we'll check that out. But they don't want to talk to anybody, and it's not just Infowars.com, it's all the rest of the media as well. But obviously we're the only ones that are pressing the issue. They just do their jobs by remaining silent.
Darrin, let's expand on this, because I know as soon as we disconnect from you, you're going to remember a bunch of stuff you wanted to cover. But bottom line, this is death by bureaucrat. I mean, are they saying now how he blew himself up, or why they think he blew himself up, or who was involved? Because I'm told feds were involved, that the police department was involved, that the sheriff wouldn't be involved. That's in one news article. Other articles say the police wouldn't be involved, and it was constables. Others say it was federal environmental police. Who raided the house?
We were told that it was county marshals. That's it. They were the only ones. There was no police department. So it was county marshals. They did, and this is not official, but I've also heard reports that they did find a detonation device, what appeared to be a detonation device inside the house. We videotaped and took pictures of an empty gasoline can that was actually charred and burned right outside the home. Found some rubber gloves, and there was a police line, you know, around the house. Do not enter, but we were able to get our cameras and kind of look inside. I think I told you yesterday, inside the property it looked much more devastating on the inside than it did the outside. You could see damage, you could see the burn from the outside, but inside is completely gutted and burnt to a crisp.
Well, I've got news camera footage from squad cars across the country where they'll get into somebody's RV and go, look, we found pipe bomb parts, and they'll hold up jumper cables. That happened in a case of a fellow I actually personally know, and it had the squad car footage and the helicopter footage, but later in the trial, the squad car footage, and he gets out, Farrell Montgomery's his name. There's actually a clip of it in Road to Tyranny. Mm-hmm. And is it Road to Tyranny or is it Masters of Terror? I forget. The point is, he gets out of his little RV, they taser him, they let the police dog bite him for no reason, and then they go on the news and say, we're arresting him for a pipe bomb, and they hold up jumper cables. And then later they had to drop it, and it's just like, you know, who knows? See, that's the thing. When government lies this much, I don't know if I believe anything they say, Darrin. It's like NASA says they've 99% proven Martian bacteria. in the samples from the Viking spacecraft that landed there in 76. I don't know if that's true. I mean, you can't believe anything they say.
Well, and the strangest things, too, we have a community spokesperson who isn't speaking. I mean, you know, she talked to us. She invited us in today. Yesterday, she sent the police after us. But today, you know, we were invited in, but still, none of our questions were answered.
Did you ask her why she sent the police after you yesterday?
Yeah, she said she did not. She did not. So, and she also said today that it was wrong for them to tell us to leave. You know, so today she's on our side. Yesterday, it was a twilight zone.
Well, again, I want to ask police something and these bureaucrats. Do you really want your kids growing up in a country like this where journalists show up in suits and ties and are walking up and police jump out and yell at them and say you can't go in the city hall? I mean, that is an unlawful thing they did. And this is happening everywhere. And I gave the analogy yesterday, Darren. I want your take on this. It'd be like if you owned a bass boat with your neighbor and you're out on the bass boat and, you know, the neighbor happens to be a cop and they shoot a hole in the bottom of the boat and say, aha, I'm sinking your boat. And you're like, but it's your boat too. You're in it too. I mean, when you butcher the Bill of Rights and Constitution that you swear an oath to protect and defend, by the way, there's a reason that's what your oaths do. You're destroying your own future. And there's all these excuses of, oh, that's the way it is. And of course, they demoralize the police because it is a thankless, horrible job. I mean, you couldn't pay me $500,000 to do it. And I know some cops now are paid over $100,000 in many areas, but still, I mean, after a while, it sounds like, but so, I mean, look, this country didn't used to have police. You had sheriffs and others for serious crimes or to get warrants after a crime was committed to bring somebody to justice. Now you got everybody calling the police on each other if their dog poops in their yard. You know, that's not what police are for, Darren.
Or if you have too many chickens. But we don't know if that's true. You know, they claimed that one of Andrew's neighbors did not like his number of chickens. And, you know, it's just silly. I mean, Andrew, we've seen his property. He kept it up to code. You know, the place looked great. And from what we understand, he was actually the official on raising chickens. He would teach other people how to do it. But according to the, you know, City Hall here, someone complained, and then he had, oh, God forbid, he had too many chickens on his property.
Well, he's dead now, so they've must feel good about themselves.
And he dared to borrow a tractor from the mayor and grade his own property to protect his property from flooding.
You know, my grandfather had a heart attack that ended up basically killing him a few years later. Might as well have been dead because the heart attack and then the heart surgery and then the stroke it caused. But I remember he was getting these $2,000 a day fines because they've got actuaries in Austin where they only hit old people, I've noticed. And because I was doing these stories myself, and they didn't have cable, but they heard from the neighbor about my story. And my grandfather's like in a little blue-collar area, South Austin. My grandmother still lives there. He goes, my mom's dad, he goes, Alex, I'm getting these $2,000 a day fines. They say I've got to clean out the creek. But he goes, here's my property line. And the city is, and of course, he was smart and informed, unlike most people who they prey on. He goes, can you do something about this, or do I go to the city council? Because that's not my property. That's a drainage ditch off the road, and I'm not supposed to keep that clear. The city is. And I said, well, sure, I'll do something about it. And but I left that day. It was a Sunday. I used to go over there and eat Sunday evenings, eat dinner with my grandparents, and I watched 60 Minutes with him. And a few days later, I go, yeah, I'm going to just hire a company to come do it. It's quicker than fighting the city. And she's like, my grandmother's like, oh, he's already been out there all day. You know, he's like 70-something years old, a little bit overweight and stuff. He's been out there all day cleaning out all the brush and stuff that had gotten in there that the code enforcers were telling him he had to clean. That wasn't even his brush. And then a couple days later, he had a heart attack. And I think that's part of it. Probably broke some, you know, plaque loose and did that. But that's how they operate. And that's what they do. And I saw him giving people $2,000 a day fines for 3-inch grass. And it was always when somebody wanted their property, we'd find. It was always cancer patients, people like that. So I just went and showed the city council people with 3-foot grass in the city and demanded they have criminal charges on them. I was actually told that by a police officer. The police started giving me all the data on the city council people who had code violations because they didn't like going. Oh, because that was the thing. They were ordered with Rolling Ellingson to go arrest him because he hadn't paid the fines. Anyway, side issue. Anything else, McBreen?
No, and like I said, Alex, it's just very tragic, and we're left here with more questions than we even began with. There's some very shady dealings in the background going on with the foreclosure. We're going to look more into that. Very suspicious, things going on there. So we're trying to talk to his attorney who was helping him with try to fight the foreclosure. So maybe we'll have an update on you on that.
Darrin, I was thinking
later this afternoon.
Thank you, Darrin. I was thinking earlier that maybe it was a smaller town. It was like a little city council that maybe they close sometimes. That looks like the Tennessee Capitol or something. This must be a really big town, and with giant steps leading up to it. And they were telling you couldn't go in that public mausoleum.
Well, it's what is it? 40-minute drive from Atlanta? But there's. You really can't tell. I mean, it seems like a big town to me. So, but
well, I mean, that looks like a bigger city council than Austin has. It's a gigantic building.
It's pretty big. Yeah.
Hey, can you have
building?
Can you have Marcos pan and show people a bigger shot of it who are watching?
All right, we're going to pan to City Hall.
Hey, great job, Darrin and Marcos. We'll get more reports from you this evening and back next week. And it's an important case of government run wild, and it is Agenda 21. It was designated to be an environmental zone, and well, he's dead now, so I guess they're going to get their property. And so there is that report. I'm going to come back and go to Jenny and jam in a call from Thomas and others. We'll do a little bit of overdrive to make sure I at least get to the 5 newest calls or oldest calls. Russell, Thomas, Jenny, John, Marie. We'll get to all of you after this quick break. But look, it is the American system to dislike big government and mistrust it. The minute you start loving big government, you're going to live in North Korea. I mean, it's that simple. And by the way, we were interrupting each other because the Skype's delayed by about a second. And so it was, but still incredible technology on the ground with an iPhone and a microphone communicating to us from thousands of miles away. Incredible. And that's Infowars News. Stay with us. I really can't get over the fact that HBO is now having pedophilia on television like it's cute. That report is at Infowars.com. Kurt Nemo's got one coming out dealing with the fact that torture has been legalized in the United States just under a new name. So watch Infowars.com for that to come out in the next hour or so, in tying it into the proliferation of this. Right now, let's go back to your phone calls. Jenny in New York, welcome.
Hello, Alex.
Hi.
I have personally known about the establishment since I was 7 years old because they used to test on me with their drugs. And I actually was compliant about it until 2003 when I wanted to fight back because the state of New York wanted to take my son away from me because of my mental illness. So I filed a petition in my county court, and my ex-husband's wife counter-petitioned me and ended up winning with a power of attorney, and she signed his name, my ex-husband's name, so neither me or my ex-husband ever signed the adoption paperwork. So the adoption's only signed by her.
Yeah, well, there's all sorts of stuff out there like that. That doesn't sound like that's legal or lawful. Thank you so much for the call. Another terrible story there as society degenerates and disintegrates. And it really is. Everybody knows that's the case. We need to repent and turn from our wicked ways, myself included. And even if you're not a Christian, I just mean we've got to recognize good from evil. I mean, come on. Thomas in Kansas, you're on the air. Welcome.
Hey, Alex. What's going on, man?
Worldwide transmission.
Long-time listener. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
I was actually at work yesterday, and I picked up the Kansas City Star, and there was on the front page, actually, was an article on how the Department of Justice is suing Apple for, I don't know, conspiring with publishers for making their ebooks higher price. What is illegal about that?
Well, that's what they always do. I did see the Justice Department. That's like having Beelzebub go after a smaller demon. I did see where they're going after Apple for trying to work with distributors to have a higher price. Amazon, basically acts like Walmart and drives down the price, which actually just destroys publishers and smaller companies and makes them huge profits. It's all part of monopolies. I'm no fan of Apple and its overall business practices, but I don't think that's illegal. But I'm not an antitrust expert, but in general terms, they're always going after some little petty thing to act like they're doing something while ignoring the larger big crimes.
Well, the interesting thing is it was headed up by Eric Holder, and it's just amazing to me that he would, just like you say, do something petty like this, which isn't petty for Apple, but, this is what creates, like, the lobbying for, corporations to just throw a bunch of money at government to get them to leave them alone.
Sure, but refreshing my memory, I think it was Apple and Kindle being sued for working together to drive down the price. You're saying it was to drive up the price?
Well, here's what the article said. The article basically said that, the Department of Justice was accusing Apple and the publishers of conspiring together of driving up the price of ebooks because publishers wanted more money from ebooks. And so they were going to drop their ebooks for Amazon and just go with Apple.
Yeah, that makes sense. I scanned over the article, and it's not that important to me in the larger scheme because it's like polishing, polishing a you-know-what. In the final equation, it really doesn't matter. The Justice Department is a joke. And it only puts on appearances that it's trying to stop crime and things like that. Okay, another hour coming up straight ahead. Stay with us. Let's go to Russell in Texas, then John and Marie. Russell, you're on the air.
How you doing, Alex?
Good.
Okay, Alex, I'm going to cover some topics here. First of all, I'm just going to say Tangy Tangerine is a winner. You're absolutely right. Now, I'm going to cover Jim Humble, MMS, Tom Leppert, the mayor of Dallas who's running for Senate, and NASA, relatives being, getting into the TSA as part of their job, and then the Texas militia. All right. Have you heard of Jim Humble, who created a multi-miracle supplement?
No.
Okay. You need to look that up on the internet. You can do a search on MMS.
I understand, but you won't get to all your points if you don't move quick. Go to the next point.
I'm going to move real quick here. Multi-miracle supplement kills all viruses and bacteria in your body. It's been used for a long time. It's a surveyor that was prospecting for cold. Two guys were about ready to die from malaria, and he discovered this from water pills. Look it up. It kills all viruses in your body.
All right. Thank you for the call, sir. I appreciate it. We just don't have time to get to the other points now. Let's go ahead and talk to John in Texas. John, you're on the air.
Hey, Alex.
Hey, buddy.
This is John here in Austin, Texas. Nice to talk to you after listening to you for so many years. I'm not selling you anything today. I want to let you know that I heard something the other day through an APD police officer about the Walmart shooting of the cop, that Walmart has a policy about their employees not putting hands on any customers, and the two people who wrestled the guy to the ground are apparently being fired from Walmart.
You're kidding.
This is what I understand. I work in a convenience store, and I got this bit of conversation from the cashier talking to a police officer who came in the store, and he was not pleased about it. Apparently, Walmart has issued, I guess, the opposite of a press release to the police department, I guess a press unrelease, telling them not to talk about it. I figured I'd tell you because you got a crew of reporters and you might know a guy on the inside of the police department to get to the bottom of it. I'm blown away by it.
I tell you what, we don't ever really use this anymore because so many thousands of people called it and a lot of it wasn't serious. But what would happen is some crazy people would leave like 500 messages a day. Do we still check that comment line, guys? Okay, this comment line is only for police officers to call and to confirm or deny what that gentleman's saying. But it's part of the nanny state where kids can't play dodgeball, where you can't run at school, where you can't spank your kids. So the whole society degenerates. If it's true because they're trying to train the public not to help each other or anybody else, that Walmart is going to fire the 2 employees that tackled the guy that had the gun. That's because they don't want any liability. They'd rather everybody just get killed and say, well, we have nothing to do with it. Just amazing. Because I know that is their policy. They say don't defend yourself. It's like in school. They say let a bully beat you up. I mean,
they will toot their own horn by patting themselves on the back because they gave the officer's family $50,000. But they apparently are putting the 2 employees are on.
That's another point. Instead of shutting the whole city down for a 5-hour parade down I-35 and the rest of it, why didn't they just give the money of the tens of thousands of dollars that cost, or a lot more, to the family? I mean, why make this giant spectacle? I mean, and they just get bigger and bigger every time stuff happens. I'll have to look into that. Here's the comment line. 512-646-4444. But if you're in Austin, obviously, no, 512-646-4444, 646-4444. And I'll also bring that up Sunday because that's important. So he told you, matter-of-factly, not that he heard it, but that it was definitely a fact that they were talking about firing those employees?
And then here's the kicker. She used to work at Walmart, and she said that that's their policy, that you can't, because, you know, Walmart doesn't prosecute people for stealing less than $25 or $50 worth of merchandise. So they have this policy where you can't grab somebody, apparently. Anyhow.
I know, I'm just dumbfounded about what you're saying, and I was thinking about, but it's okay for them to own slave camps with little kids making the products. Well, all the products now they find have blood on them, and the little bitty fingers bleeding. You cannot go in the city council building in broad daylight. I think it was like noontime or so, because they were on the show right after it happened, and we have that high-def footage they shot there on the ground. They're getting back tonight. We'll have it for you on the radio/TV and the nightly news on Monday. And the police first got in their face, said, turn your cameras off. You're bad. You're not real media. And my guys are like, First Amendment, we're just going inside, very polite. They said, you're not allowed to go in the building. Well, now there's been a new twist. And while Darrin was getting ready for this live feed, Floors My Park, you don't get that, stupid. We're going to build a high-rise on it now. But the point is, the police said you can't go in the city council headquarters public building. So I told him, I said, I want you to go back down there tomorrow, and if you choose to violate their unlawful order and you choose to get arrested, I will sue them. I will pay to sue them. But I said, don't resist, obviously, and I said, and don't go in if you don't want to get arrested. Well, they backed off. Now, as we were waiting to go live here during the last 3-minute break, Darrin McBreen, he was illegally raising chickens, and he'd beaten them in court over and over again since 2008. And I was reading they couldn't get the local sheriff involved, so somehow the feds were involved, and there was an explosion, and he's dead. And yesterday, Darrin McBreen and our other great reporter and researcher, Marcos Morales, arrived there. They arrived there the evening before, and they went to the city hall that looks like it's a Capitol building or something. It's so large. And we're told by the police, yelled at, and told, you cannot, and we have footage of this. Wordies died when the establishment came and took his little farm home of just 2.5 acres or so from an iPhone via Skype there in Roswell, Georgia, the site of Agenda 21 death and destruction. As we document and chronicle Agenda 21 green zoning, because they were taking his land to make it a green zone. And, of course, other land that they've been taking. This was just the tail-end piece they needed. But now it's not going to be a park, they've announced. They're deciding to just sell it to some friends, of course. That's how it works. Usually they don't even build the park. They're like, we're taking your neighbor's land for a park. The neighbor's like, oh, I want that. Then later, well,